is Shlomo Swidler, and we're going to talk about what's happening here in Israel. So we're going to have a list of panels here. Shlomo, please welcome your panel. While Shlomo is setting up, I just wanted to say a few words. For those who want to get involved, we have special sessions. There is one by Monty Taylor here. We'll be talking about how do you actually put projects or new projects in OpenStack, on StackForge to be specific. There would be other talks and other people here in the room that can help you or give you information of their experience. Obviously Alex from Mirantis and some other folks that are around here. So please use that to see how you get involved. Shlomo.
Thanks, Nati. Good morning, everyone. If you're on the panel, if you see your name up here, please come down and join the panel. Apologies on behalf of Oren Katz, who could not join us today. But we have on the panel here, we have Kobe from Liveperson, and Sam from Radware, Arik from Mellanox, and Uri, where are you? Come on. So before we get started with the panel, I want to know how many of you have seen the OpenStack, or how many have heard the OpenStack podcast? All right, very good, about 10% of you. I'm famous, that's cool. So you'll recognize most of these folks sitting in front of you from the podcast episodes that have been out, and they've been so generous as to give us little previews in the podcast about what they're going to talk about today in their sessions. I'm not going to steal your thunder. I won't ask to get a peek of your slides or talk too much about the information you want to share in your particular sessions. What I would like to do is to explore in general trends in the Israeli ecosystem among use cases here. Before we do that, though, I'd like to hear a little bit more about who's here in the audience. Who here works for a company that's publicly listed? Oh, about half of you. And the other of you who are not publicly listed, who's working for a startup? About 10% of you. Nice. And who would classify themselves as a developer, R&D person? Also about 40% of you. What about IT systems? Not a lot. And what about executives? Several. Okay. Who's in marketing? Heidi, raise your hand. No? All right. My apologies. So we have a nice representation of a good cross-section of companies in Israel and different types of users in the audience. So what I'd like to do is let everybody please say a few words about who you are, what kinds of pieces of OpenStack you're using, and then we'll get talking. Please, Uri, please start.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Uri Cohen. I'm with GigaSpaces, heading the product team. We're building frameworks on top of OpenStack to manage applications, and basically the entire life cycle of how you would install, deploy, manage, scale your apps on top of OpenStack. We're using most of the OpenStack APIs, primarily Nova, which is compute, and Neutron, which is networking, and more recently also Heat.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kobe Holzer, and I lead the DevOps group in Liveperson. We've been using OpenStack, playing with it for the last 2 years, and the last year and a half we are having it in production. We're using most of the OpenStack projects. Going to upgrade to Havana soon, so we're going to use Heat in Centimeter as well, and you can hear more about it in one of the sessions later.
So my name is Belkovic. I'm leading the product. I'm working at Radware. Radware is a network company doing load balancing and security products. I'm leading the product that is used to integrate with external systems, obviously also with OpenStack. We've been contributing to OpenStack as a source contributor, well, a little bit of source in the last, I would say, a year and a half. And what I'll be here to talk about is actually the capability of a company to now, I think, get the option to integrate with OpenStack as an ecosystem partner in a very easy way due to the changes that occurred in Havana.
And
I'm sorry. We are using basically Neutron, obviously since it's networking, and somewhat Nova and some other components.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eli Cole from Mellanox. I'm from the business development team, doing mainly ecosystem activities, working with startups and bigger companies. In Mellanox, we look at OpenStack from two sides. We are contributing code to that, mainly to the Neutron, Cinder project, and also lately looked more deeper into the Swift and Ceph. And we just lately did our first in-house deployment of OpenStack, and in a later session, our CIO is going to talk about how we use that for our chip design development lifecycle. So as I said, we contribute to Cinder. It has a very good match with other activities that we do in lowering latencies, and we contribute to Neutron, of course.
thank you. So if I understand correctly, Arik and Kobe, you use OpenStack as part of to deliver internal capabilities. And Uri and Sam, your involvement in OpenStack is more with satellite projects and leveraging a community for your own business. Is that correct? Okay. So I think it would be interesting to understand, for each of these two different types of use cases, which kinds of alternatives did you consider before you chose to go ahead with OpenStack? Please.
So like I said, we started 2 years ago, but a year and a half ago, we knew that we wanted to go to as much as virtualization as possible. So we had 3 top choices that we had VMware, OpenStack, and Solaris Zones. We were a company based on Solaris Zones, so it was one of the options. And it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard to choosing OpenStack. Of course, like Heidi said, it was a lot about cost efficiency. So we like a lot of parts of the OpenStack. We love the technology, but cost efficiency is a major thing.
Mm-hmm. And how does that compare with you, Arik?
In Mellanox, we started investing into virtualization a few years ago. And in our IT, we have different technologies running. OpenStack is actually the latest. We just felt that it is mature enough now to actually take it into our IT, have, let's call, regular IT guys dealing with that, not just super skilled developers. And we also believe in putting our money when our mouth is. So we go talk to customers about OpenStack and how we can help them with their OpenStack deployments. And we said, if that's where our heart is, we need to make sure that we actually know how to deploy it end-to-end and bring value to ourselves before we are bringing value to customers with accelerations and other stuff that we have in the deployment. So it has 2 edges. The virtualization that we are really into that for years, and we have the putting our money where our mouth is and verifying that we are actually delivering the values that we are talking about.
Mm-hmm. So both of you are achieving cost savings for internal projects as well as additional flexibility. Okay, and Sam and Uri, in your companies, you leverage OpenStack more as an ecosystem. What can you say about all the alternatives that you considered?
So we've considered, well, actually, we've not considered switching from alternatives. We're actually trying to do everything that makes sense for us from a business perspective, which means, as Kobe said, integration with VMware, integration with OpenStack and integration with other cloud management systems, whether they're not even really cloud management systems. So we are doing everything. But OpenStack for us, it's dear because first of all, we identified the opportunity to join early enough to impact the way the load balancing as a service looks in OpenStack. So it's not just that we do some integration, we actually are part of the actual definition and the way it looks. So this is why we care more about that.
I think we started, I'd say, kind of neutral. I mean, the first slogan for Cloudify was any cloud, any app on any cloud. And that worked for a while until we basically identified the momentum behind OpenStack. And if you compare it to other cloud systems, it's it's pretty overwhelming. And so more recently we realized that we need to put more focus on OpenStack as a target market. We focus mostly enterprises that deploy private clouds. And we're seeing OpenStack being the kind of emerging winner in that area. So it's a big focus for us now, as opposed to the other clouds.
So Uri and Sam, you see the ecosystem as a driving force in helping you in your own business and improving your product's reach. It seems to me that everybody here on the panel, regardless of whether you're using OpenStack internally or as an ecosystem within your product offering, really benefits from having the community active and vibrant. My question to you is, how does the community benefit from your involvement?
So, so first thing was that we felt that the community also needed someone that is a commercial vendor to impact the way the APIs look. So on the Grizzly timeframe, we got involved also, not just with the development, but also with the definition of how the service should look. Went with other companies to also assist in implementing and testing, and eventually on the Havana timeframe, we actually made this something that can be open to an ecosystem so that other vendors could implement solutions for us. So the way we contributed is by reviewing, by designing, and also by committing code.
So we're not quite as advanced at this stage, but I guess other than managing applications in OpenStack, we've started to get involved in a few, I'd say, incubator and StackForge projects. The first one is Solemn, which we're part of. And there are a few other projects like Mistral and Morano that we're thinking about joining. And there's also a very, I would say, vibrant discussion around DSLs, specifically when it comes to the Tosca specification. And we're working with IBM and people from Rackspace on simplifying that specification, making it more kind of OpenStack compatible.
So you're contributing your efforts back to the community. You see the community leveraging what you're doing as a contribution back.
Yeah, definitely. And the code conversion will come very soon as well. So.
As a company that is a leader in the area of performance, we do a lot of work, not only in contributing code to projects like Cinder and other that are related, but we also work with several universities now to enable actually high performance in the cloud. Those are not really commercial projects, and we put a lot of effort and time into making such technology more common and more reachable to researchers from different universities all around the world, so they can also benefit, and that is the work that we are doing with OpenStack and with people that come either from the foundation itself or from supporting companies together with the universities. So that is one type of effort that we do with the community.
Mm-hmm. Anything to add, Kobe?
Yeah. As a heavy user of the OpenStack, Liveperson, I think that my job is to convince other companies to adopt the technology as well. For the last 2 years, we had a lot of companies coming to us, talking with us, and we have a lot of confidence in the technology, so we're trying to bring some of that back to the community, and this is why I sit here.
Just yeah, one thing I forgot to mention about GigaSpaces and specifically Nati and Sharon is that you know, all of this is a large part they're doing. So in terms of contributing to the community, I think you know, kind of fostering the community here in Israel is also something that we do.
Okay. Well, from your experience, gentlemen, what would you say is the most important one or two characteristics that a company has to have, that an organization has to have, in order to successfully adopt OpenStack?
Okay, this is a very good question. Actually, Nati and I had a panel on it in Hong Kong. I think that one of the big things is that you need to have a group of DevOps. This is my personal belief. Because you need a lot of skill to handle the OpenStack, at least it used to be. I hope it will be less in the future.
What do you mean by DevOps?
I mean that you need a group that it's not like in the old times we used to have system groups and operations and R&D. But today there is a special kind of group for the last few years. They call DevOps. They are breaching the gaps between the R&D and the operations. They write code, and they also know a lot about the operations and productions. And the main skill is to know how to work with open source and automation and virtualization. So a lot of things like writing Puppet, for example. Know your way around code. It's very important. So this is why it's important to have a very strong DevOps group.
So you're saying that it's important to have technically skilled people.
Yeah.
Okay. How is that? What about being technically skilled makes you DevOps, and why is that important for OpenStack?
For us, it was a lot about automation. We are using Puppet end-to-end, so it was very easy for us to adopt the OpenStack at early stages. We started with the SX in production a year and a half ago, and the OpenStack, for us, it was mainly for the non-persistent servers. So we didn't have at first, today we do, we didn't have at first servers that had meaningful data on them. So having the Puppet working for us, we could bring up and down servers as much as we needed. So it was the technology we could adopt very, very early. So it's a skill that I think it's not very common, I'm afraid, today.
Okay. Gentlemen, what else is important? Or
I definitely I want to kind of touch on a bit on what Kobe said. We come from an application background, and mostly our team is mostly standard, like software, not standard, top-notch software developers, but with I'd say very little operational background. And one of the things we're trying to do now, realizing how important it is to know both the development side and the operational side, is trying to hire people with more operational background. And as Kobe said, finding the people that have both skills at the same time is not something easy. I'm not sure. Probably the same in the U.S., but here in Israel, it's not that easy. I mean, the term DevOps is pretty overloaded. When you hire people based on the DevOps keyword, you get all sorts of things. You know, people that were sysadmins just, I don't know, 6 months ago are now DevOps people. So it's definitely about strengthening that aspect of your team, understanding the operational part if you're coming from the development part, and vice versa. I'd say another thing is be patient, because sometimes it takes time. I mean, for us to set up an OpenStack lab wasn't very easy. I'm sure tools like Fuel, for example, that is developed by Mirantis, help quite a bit, and Havana is much easier to install than Grizzly, for example. But still, it's still not that trivial to set up an OpenStack environment, so you have to be patient, and you have to, it's a trial and error thing that you need to go through.
Mm-hmm.
What we see is, in the very basic, it's being proactive or reactive. If it is an organization that is mainly reactive, they will keep doing things in the way they are used to doing. If it is a proactive organization, and that's really at the basic, they will look for better solutions, be more innovative. And even before being patient and have the skills and understand operations and get people from R&D to talk to people from IT and get the DevOps, you need to be an organization that enable its people to think, to take responsibility and to act upon. If it's not the case and it's a reactive organization, then they will keep doing the same of the same that they used to do till now.
I'll talk about the different aspect. I'll talk why I think a startup, an Israeli startup, need to think about this. So, as we were speaking about OpenStack for the last 2 years, it's actually becoming now a reality. But it's still, I think, it's in an early state. It's in a starting state, and I think at that state, technology excellence in a solution is a decisive factor over, for example, capabilities such as good marketing, good sales reach, etc. So Israel, as a place that can actually excel with technical solutions, by actually starting now, even earlier, to be involved in OpenStack and create solutions that are part of OpenStack, get the opportunity to create excellent products that can, at least for now, reach the customers and allow us as a startup nation to be successful. So this is another aspect of why not just customers, but does it need for a customer to do that, but why a startup should also think about joining in.
Can I ask someone? Yeah, so maybe you can also talk about the process that you guys went through in enabling your team to
So
contribute.
this is exactly my talk. So.
Oh, okay, okay. So go to Sam's talk.
So come to track 1 later, and Sam will talk there. So audience, please, if any of you have questions for the panelists, we have here on stage a lot of experience, technical and organizational, adopting OpenStack. I'd like to take questions. Yes? So the question is, are you using a specific distribution or vendor in your OpenStack offerings, or raw OpenStack?
So we are using Liveperson, the Ubuntu distribution. Like I said before, we are based on Puppet, so it was very natural and easy for us to take the Puppet for the OpenStack from the Puppet Forge and use it to install the Ubuntu distribution.
So we have a vanilla deployment, and we are also looking at doing another deployment with Mirantis Fuel, and it's good that we have Alex here today. So we have the two, and we'll probably do the scale up or the scale out with the Fuel.
And as a development environment, we obviously use a lot of DevStack for developers. For demonstration, I've actually used a few on my laptop, which was very nice to set up quite fast. So if you really have a decent laptop, you can actually try and use Fuel and have your OpenStack environment running there. And also now, since there's the notion of third-party testing, which I'll touch a little bit, maybe also Mark will touch, then we'll also start to build a small OpenStack environment that will be used to launch automated tests. So, and for that, we'll probably use some of the standard packages. I'm not sure yet which.
Yeah, so we use a lot of DevStack for development. We have a small vanilla deployment in-house, but we also work with a lot of other vendors like HP Cloud, for example. So we use their version, which is not exactly the vanilla one. Rackspace, we started to work with Nebula as well. So it's kind of a mix. It's important for us to be able to support all of the flavors out there.
The question is, what hypervisor or container or perhaps other type of technology are you using underneath for virtualization?
I can start. At least for our vanilla installation, we tried to start with Zen, and that didn't work out too well. So now we switched to KVM. It was very hard to install OpenStack on Zen at the time. Internally, for development purposes and testing the product, we do a lot of Vagrant plus Docker. But that's not something that we use in production or anything. It's just for development environment because it's a more lightweight environment that we use sometimes.
We use KVM as the hypervisor, but Docker is a very big thing. We talk about it a lot today. We don't have it in the lab, but we plan to. And they just now released also CentOS Reddit support, so it's much more interesting for us.
And you're talking about Docker. Can you tell us just one sentence about what Docker is and why it's interesting?
For us, it's about containers. Okay, when using the hypervisor, you need to go. You have more layers, and when using containers, one of the big thing about it is of course performance. You use less resources. You can put much more containers on the one host. Of course, it has a lot of more things that you can do with it. I'm not going to go into it right now. But I think it's one of the big things.
Thank you.
So for OpenStack, using KVM. We're also doing other integrations, and I think in our development, we also use a lot of VMware, so but not around OpenStack.
And we also use KVM. This is what we see the most with our customers. But we are looking to integrate OpenStack in the future with bare metal. You'll see later in the presentation for our CIO that this is still an island in our IT and in our development labs. And this is something that we would like to see integrated into OpenStack, definitely.
How much does it matter what hypervisor you choose?
At least I'm not going to get into the hypervisor wars here. Which hypervisor is better, which is more performant, and all that stuff. There are smarter people in the audience that probably can say more about that. But OpenStack plays, at least when we install it, plays much more nicely with KVM than the other hypervisors.
Sounds like the panel agrees.
So if you're going to OpenStack, it's probably going to be, the easiest way is going to be to use KVM.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, so the question is, what runs on top of OpenStack? And if it's for your developers, is it a platform as a service offering? Do you develop it internally? What are you doing to help your developers have an easier time with consuming OpenStack?
Okay. So this is a very good question. I'm actually going to talk a lot about it in my session later. But OpenStack for us is our main infrastructure. We have more than 1,500 instances in production. And I mentioned before that most of our applications are non-persistent. So we use it in our web layer, application layer, and also starting with our data layer. Besides production, we also use OpenStack for dev, QA, CI. In there we use 100% of services with the OpenStack. So it's everywhere for us.
Is there any specific PaaS layer that you're using on top, or is this something internally cobbled together?
Nothing specific, like I mentioned before. I'm gonna go more thoroughly about it in my session, so I'll leave it there.
Just yes. Just yes. Okay. Yes, they're using PaaS layers on top. Some are not. How important is, if at all, how important is Amazon compatibility for you? It could be it's not important at all, but we'd like to know.
Not.
For us, it's not important either. So.
Not important?
For us it's a bit more complicated. Like I said, so we came in from the any cloud kind of approach, and more recently started to focus on OpenStack. So we still support Amazon as a primary target cloud. I wouldn't say it's for customer reasons, because most of our customers are not running on Amazon, but it's mostly for, this is the de facto standard, and it's in most cases, if you're going to do a public demo, if you're a user that downloads the product and not too familiar with OpenStack, just want a cloud to run it on, don't really care too much about it, so you probably use Amazon. So in that respect, we do support Amazon, but the shift of focus that we've done now means that we're doing OpenStack first development. So every new feature, every advanced thing integration that we do is firstly targeted at OpenStack.
So for you, Amazon is a nice demo environment for your OpenStack efforts.
Yeah, this one, yeah.
There was a, yeah.
To your question, so we do care about Amazon in that we do have, we do see customers that are using Amazon, hence we will support Amazon. But from an API, we treat it as a default platform for us. So it's not that we care about the API compatibility of OpenStack and Amazon. Amazon is one platform to us, and OpenStack is another platform, and that's it, basically.
Yeah, one more thing to add about that. I agree with Sam about not caring too much about the API compatibility. And there's been a very heated discussion about that in the OpenStack community, right about the time the Havana Summit took place. But I would say that Amazon is a great trailblazer. And at least when we look at the layers on top of the IaaS, Amazon is I would say even the reference, or the is where we look at when we envision where we want to be with OpenStack. Okay, so OpenStack is very good right now at the IaaS layer. It's starting to climb up to the platform layer with projects like Solum and Mistral and others. And I think Amazon is a great example for what you should do in this domain. So in that sense, I have a lot of respect for Amazon and definitely looking at what they're doing and trying to imitate it.
Don't worry, they didn't sponsor this event.
For us as a hardware company that use OpenStack mainly for R&D purposes, it is important to have the cloud on-premise being able to change hardware configuration. So Amazon on that term is of course not an option, but in terms of creating a community and creating an environment where you can deploy your private OpenStack and then move on peaks to whatever other cloud provider based on your business needs. Personally, I think it is very important that you have the Amazon capability or compatibility, and the more the clouds are similar in terms of the API they provide, we as business get more flexibility. We are able to make the business decisions better with less constraints and making more efficient business decisions. So it is very important.
Okay, let's take the last question, please. So what has your experience been in rolling out OpenStack to production? And let me expand on that and say, how has that How has that experience been with upgrading versions of OpenStack? In fact, that on about 6 months ago in a similar panel.
So are you referring
Yes, that
to
question.
upgrading the OpenStack or rolling production services on top of OpenStack? Okay, okay. Because-
New rollout
Okay.
is the question. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with the OpenStack, you get to boot instances very, very fast. And like I said before, using Puppet, and we can boot instances, and with Puppet, they are very quickly get into the production. I think the new challenge now is going to be in the next release with Havana, having a heat accelerometer inside, so building the stacks and make it absolutely out of scale in production, like having all your clusters in the heat stack and managing them automatically. So it's going to be the big next challenge. And in terms of rolling to production, there are two ways that we thought about doing it. The first way is like put new instances, put the new service on top of them, move the load balancer to them, and then a week after reduce all the instances. This is, I think, yeah, okay. And another way, which we also use, I think it's the main way that we use, is because we're using RPM packaging and Puppet, we are upgrading existing instances where we can, and doing it. We plan on doing it with M Collective when we can orchestrate the upgrades and doing it one by one, and with sanity checks in the middle using M Collective. So it's going to be something. It's going to be our next challenge as well.
Okay. Gentlemen, I want to thank you very much. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. I encourage you, please, to attend sessions if you're interested in asking specific questions about these gentlemen's experience with OpenStack at their companies. And please thank them. Thank you.